Thank you, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be here. It's funny. I feel like I should be welcoming you because I have so many questions.
I know. Well, let's give for anyone listening, let's give. I'm going to put the chat on over here just in case we have questions that might come up while we're on. But we'll give a little background about how we know each other and why we're even talking today.
Yeah, I'd love that. You want
Yes.
to go?
So, yeah, I was introduced to you through a mutual friend, Lisa. Um, the book had been kind of at a standstill for a while, and when we met, I don't even know why we started talking about it, but I told her a funny story, and she said, "Oh, I need you to meet Amy." And I was like, "Okay, I'll meet Amy." Like, I had no idea. I'm like, I was not a writer. I'm actually a CPA, which is like the opposite of a writer. And I said, "Well, I don't know if I want to take an essay class." I said, I was very intimidated. But then once, I signed up, and from the first class, it was just, I don't know, it felt easy.
It's funny that you say you were intimidated because even your early work, it just felt flawless. It felt like you'd been doing this forever.
Mm.
It really did. Your pieces were clean straight out of the gate. It felt like I was barely touching them. And from the very beginning, I remember wondering, and this is a question for you,
Mhm.
what it was like to write about this really heavy, not everybody wants to read about a mom who has a child with cancer and what that experience is like. But I feel like there was something inside you that knew you had to tell this story. And I'm really curious about what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, I had started writing maybe about a year after his official diagnosis. He was such a character. He captivated people, staff, people on the street, wherever we were. And something funny happened, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start jotting this down. And then once I did, I just never stopped. And wherever in that middle point I was like, "Oh, well, maybe I'll go back, and I really gotta talk about Jeff and why we're kind of like maybe, our divorce, and, it's how difficult it is to co-parent, but co-parent a child with cancer." And it was very fresh. We were newly divorced, a year outside of our divorce, Ben got diagnosed. So, I mean, a lot of these elements were a part of the story that felt very different, different from other people's stories, and it just grew. It really
Yeah.
grew. Mhm.
So did you, and again, this is probably a writer question, but I'm very curious. Were you walking around with, and the title of your book, of course, Mom's Book, were you walking around with these little composition notebooks, or what were you writing in when you say you were jotting down notes? Like what
Yeah,
was that?
kind of. I'm not a stereotypical writer, so I worked a lot during that whole time, and we were
Mhm.
traveling, from New York to Virginia Beach, back, and always had my laptop. So, I would just open up the notebook. What I don't even think I had a name for it, at the time, but I would
Mhm.
open it up and I would just jot some stuff down. Yeah, so it was kind of like that. It wasn't really
Mhm.
intentional.
Did you feel like you were trying to preserve or record his experiences for yourself and maybe for him too?
Mhm.
Like, did you feel like it would be something that you would later do something with?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he had a rare cancer, and, they didn't say the words terminal ever to us, but we knew that cure wasn't on the horizon, and I thought, "W wow, I don't wanna forget a minute of this." I mean, once I really
Mhm.
started doing this, I was like, and it felt at some point purposeful.
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
long before we started a foundation, or, any of those things, I just wanted to remember.
Well, and I wonder, and this strikes me now, and again, I know we talked before this about what we would cover, but it's hitting me now that you in the early pages, I remember reading and thinking, gosh, number one, you are such a force. And number two, like you're so alone. You were going through the divorce. Who did you confide in? Like I was very much like, who are the characters that are helping you absorb this? Because it very much felt to me as a reader that you were holding everyone up. And I almost wondering if the writing acted as a sort of life preserver for you. Like you were your, recording and sharing was a way for you to feel that support even from yourself and from Ben, even as he was
Mhm.
going through it.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that actually, but you're right.
Mhm.
I mean, it was so devastating for my parents, for Jeff, for Ben's sister Lauren. And so everyone's has their own grief they're dealing with. So it's very difficult to grieve with other people. And I was, my business was full blown. I mean, that the business grew 30% during that time. I don't even know how that happened.
Wow.
I like not intentionally either, but like I focused, and I would learn to compartmentalize really well. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I definitely had my work to dive into, and I think that was helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I remember you asking me, like, who was your support? I mean, I had great friends and my sisters, and, my parents were there to help with Ben, and Jeff was there. I mean, I know we all kind of like got on each other's nerves and it was so intense, but I can't imagine doing it another way. I
Yeah.
can't, we were all there. Everyone was there for that little boy.
Mhm. They were, and in this book, you dance around the conflict of differing opinions about
Mhm.
what to do for Ben. Like, what is the best step? And I wonder if writing about that gave you a different perspective. As a reader, what I thought you did so well was show us both sides. Like we really understood each, and right now I think I'm speaking primarily about you and Jeff, but we understood where each of you were coming from in terms of your wishes and about next steps for Ben.
Mhm.
Um, but was writing about that, did you gain a different perspective when you were writing about that?
I think I was able to understand, like, at least Jeff a little bit more.
Hmm.
When I was writing from his side, I mean, it was funny, he is very much about medicine,
Hmm.
would give me a hard time about, not writing notes down because I'm more photographic and I can remember. But, but those are the kind of things you fight about. You're fighting about all these details that honestly don't matter because
Right.
you can't fight about the
The
big.
big thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it gave me a little bit more compassion, I think, for him
Mhm.
to kind of and I would have to, like, sit and I would write at night. So I'd go to work, after he passed, I had a little ritual. I would go to work, and then on the nights I wasn't doing other things, I would sit at my computer, I'd have a little dinner, and I would just go back to those places. I mean, I could go back into a room and tell you what the doctor was wearing. It was
Mhm.
just so real.
Did it feel like a way for you to process your grief
Mhm.
too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what really, I mean, we felt like as a reader, we felt like we were in your grief journey with you. And one of the things that I loved so much about it is that there was lightness, there was humor, it
Mhm.
wasn't all dark, heavy, my kid
Mhm.
has cancer, how are we going to survive this?
Yeah.
It was really, there were real moments of just joy, sheer joy when you could tell that you were in the moment with Ben, whether he was holding your hand or, you were meeting Ringo Starr, or what, all these wonderful little anecdotes that are part of the book. Um, it gave it a lightness. So as a reader, it wasn't like this treacherous, drudgery to read through the grief part. Did you feel that as you were writing? Did that help you actually continue with the writing because it is such a heavy topic?
Yeah, 'cause I don't think I could have written it if it wasn't, because
Mhm.
that's the way it was all along. We would be
Right.
in really horrific moments, and then, like, something funny would happen, and
Yeah.
that was part of it too. I don't know if anybody else was having the same experiences that we were.
Mhm.
I mean, we were so, like, engaged in, the healing arts that we learned about, the integrated medicine. It was like Jeff was a DJ, a big time DJ, and I grew up dancing, so why wouldn't we
Do that
participate
now.
in things? But other people were like, "No, we don't wanna, we don't wanna do that." So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think that we allowed it. I always said that we treated Ben the same, whether he was going to kindergarten getting ice cream or getting a chemo infusion. We really,
Mhm.
so and when you do that, the life around side that just trickles in, you know?
Mhm.
We were just
Yeah.
kind of doing our thing, and
Yeah. And at the same time, I feel like there was all of these little layers of mysticism and,
Mhm,
these crazy cool synchronicities and all of this otherworldly,
mhm,
um, stuff that was happening along the way, which I think if anybody's ever been in that period of time where somebody's life is threatened, or you're with somebody while they're dying, you can't be in that space without some mysticism seeping in, at least from my
mhm,
perspective. Um, but I'd love to hear what it was like writing about that because there is a moment, and even in my own work, where I'm like, people aren't going to believe this. It's too much woo, but that's exactly
mhm.
how it happens, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and now I think, 5 or 10 years ago, I think it would have been more difficult to write about it, and I wrote about it more actually in the beginning. I was, kind of in a lot like over explaining what it was for to be at the psychic or the medium, and then like as time passed on, I was like, no, people get this now. It's
Yeah,
not. I mean, I was at a client's the other day and we were talking about Reiki or what, and those kinds of things wouldn't have even happened.
yeah, that.
So I felt like I had, like, more permission to kinda go there, but it was the truth. I mean, it was exactly what I was experiencing, and I think it
Mhm.
gives the story a lighter element.
Yeah, yeah, sense of purpose and
Mhm,
knowing and this whole idea of legacy and that spirits live
mhm,
on. You were talking about your grandmother in the book, and she'd been dead for a number of years, like those
mhm.
kinds of things. And then toward the end of the book, it was Ben, obviously, but um, yeah, those moments really, as a reader, just kind of clutched your heart, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's another reason the story I felt this pull for this story to come out. I mean, yes,
Mhm.
did it help me in my grief? Yes. I probably wouldn't be in the shape I am had I not done this, but I feel like sometimes the story it wasn't for me to hold anymore, it was for me to share. Mhm,
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, because this is a collection of essays, which is really hard to pull off. We were talking about
mhm.
how each of these pieces kind of flow into the next. It almost feels like a cohesive narrative. It feels like it just fell into place that way. But I'm curious, as a reader, I remember having my favorites, actually. It was hard to choose, but I'm curious if you had a favorite and if there's one that really kind of defined the whole project for you or one that made it easy for you to keep writing.
Well, it was the one I shared in the essay class. So prior
Mm.
to, joining your class last spring, like spring, summer, it was a very much a story from A to B. I
Mhm.
had written it that way, and it was becoming really hard for me to, go through it like that, and then when this essay idea came up, I was like, "Wow, maybe I can just shape them." And I remember one night I was laying in bed and I woke up and I just grabbed my laptop and I really it took me like 4 hours, like this part here, and it was like a puzzle that just came together.
Wow.
But sharing the essay, I think my favorite, it's been retitled. It was called Ben, Bobby Both, I think when I
Mm.
was and then when
Yes.
I yeah, right. And
Yeah.
so this essay is about Ben where, towards the end of his life, we were in New York. We were walking down the street, just we usually flew in or got there on a Sunday and would kind of make our way in whatever neighborhood we were staying in, go to the grocery. And we're walking down the street and he just nonchalantly says, "I don't like Ben anymore, call me Bobby," which is short for his middle name, Robert. And you can read about that in the book, which I have right here. But but there was something everyone had their own spin about what that meant. My parents really clung on to that being representative of his love for his grandfather. And I really felt like he was sick Ben. He was sick of being sick Ben. I
It
mean, that
was
was
the
the way.
identity. Yeah.
Mhm. But it
A
was
way for him to claim a new identity and
Mhm. And it was funny,
embody it.
the ripple effect of all of that, but I think that was such a turning point for us,
Mhm.
and so maybe one of my favorites, yeah.
I love it, and also it really showcases you as a parent, like, how you handle all these little things, and this is just one example, but, I almost feel like this is a masterclass in parenting a sick child because you just there was something about throughout the manuscript, you just kind of not just rolled with everything, but you were really strategic
Mhm,
and thoughtful in how you interacted with him, the language you used with him, and with the healthcare professionals.
mhm.
Um, and I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about the healthcare professionals. Again,
Yeah.
I'm going entirely off script
No,
from
no,
what we
no,
discussed.
I kinda love it 'cause, well, I had clients who were doctors. So, I
Hmm.
think when from working with them in business, it wasn't intimidating for me to talk to a doctor at all.
Right.
I wasn't scared about what they would say. I wasn't scared about sharing or, um, asking questions, and I'm sure we will forever be the mom who asks all the questions. I'm sure there's others, but I mean I mean, that part was easy for me.
Hmm.
That was but I think that and I think there's another I can't remember which essay it is, but there was one, particular part where when these kids get accessed, for treatment, it is horrific. I mean, they're different ages, different stages. So there was one part where I mean, I had it down to a science. Like, I had him in, completely we'd go through this whole drill, and so one of the nurses came around and she said, "You could teach a class on that."
Mm.
Oh, and I was like, I mean, you don't wanna hear that when you're in the middle of it, your kid's screaming,
Yeah.
but, I mean, you get to a point where you have to kind of be strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were trying to get it to the MRI, and if we were gonna be late to the MRI, I know what that was gonna be on the other side, so sometimes you just have to push things
And there
along.
was a level of trust between the two of you too. I think that's what was so striking is it shined a light on your relationship both with Ben, but also like how you I'm even thinking about pushback maybe isn't the right word, but you were clear about what you needed from the healthcare professionals in terms of
Mhm,
like what's going to happen, what can we expect, what's next, what you were like you said the mom with all the questions,
mhm,
and you kind of pinholed them where they had to respond. um, so I loved seeing that come to light in the piece,
yeah.
or in all the pieces in the book. And I'm wondering if that was just how you already were in the world, or if having a child with cancer kind of further defined your character in that way.
I think that was just how we were, and that's how Ben was.
Mm.
He was as certain as I was, or more so, with the doctors.
Mhm.
I mean, there was
Yeah.
one part where he told he was I think the doc was getting a bone marrow biopsy or something, and he stood up on the table and he said, "Show me all your supplies first." He was so mad
Yeah.
that he was taken out of the playroom, and the doctor just unfolded all of the instruments, took his time explaining everything, and you're just, you know,
I
um,
love it.
and he was like, "Wendy, we always want an advocate for the patient. It's generally not the patient."
Right, except for in
Yeah.
this case.
So,
Well,
I
and
mean,
he
these
also
are some, yeah.
he had all this knowing, like
Mhm,
this wisdom, this
mhm,
wise soul. I mean, I remember a part where he was like talking about what his blood counts were going to be, or I can't even remember
mhm.
exactly what it was, but I wondered if you at the time, what you made of that. Did you feel like he was closer to whatever comes next? Did you feel like he was just infused with knowing? Like I'm wondering from a parent perspective what that was like.
Yeah, I think he could see things very clearly.
Mhm.
And, they say children are very connected to their souls until the age of 7, right?
Mhm.
Or more so. And so I think he just had a very clear knowing of things and shared.
Mhm.
Like it was a fun fact. Like, I want to go get some vanilla ice cream, like
Mhm.
it's no different than talking about what was going on at the hospital or how his life was going to end.
Mhm.
Which was really interesting, like, and sometimes I even was like, "Oh gosh," you had to kind of process.
Yeah.
He did that. I think he could see it and he was detached from it, if that makes sense
Mhm.
in
It
some
was
way.
intuition. Somebody mentioned to me intuition is never tied to fear. It's just
Mhm.
knowing.
Mhm.
So, if you're afraid of something, that's not necessarily intuition. It just seemed like a knowing, like a, yeah, yeah. And I'm curious now that with all this book, even in the writing of it, after Ben passed away and you were, because I'm sure based on everything that happened in the essays in the book, that there have been uh, moments where you feel really close to Ben, where he's communicated with you in some way. I'm wondering if during this process, even with your big book launch, like if you're feeling that even more so now in some way.
I do. I mean, definitely not all the time and definitely not as much as I would want.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely know when he's around, or sometimes I think he taps people, from the other side, like, call my mom or,
Mhm.
doing his magic.
Yeah.
And yeah, because sometimes I'm like, how could I have done this without by myself, without a little assistance, like I call it from the other side,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah.
was standing. Beside me, just poking me along.
Mhm.
Like he was sometimes I feel like he was it was his job to come down and do the story, and it was my job to tell it,
Yeah.
you know? Like we had
Yeah.
a contract, I'll do it, but you have to do your part.
Yeah. And I wonder if when you were writing, I mean, I'm imagining you dropping yourself into the scene and sort of reliving it. I mean, you kind of have to do that when you're writing, right? Like you have to kind of put yourself back in that moment as you were describing earlier. Do you have or did you have like a sort of ritual that I mean, you talked about these moments where you would wake up in the middle of the night with these ideas that you had to
Mhm.
like, structure the essays or whatever. But on the days that it wasn't coming to you automatically, was there some sort of process or ritual or anything you did to help with the writing?
Because I was working full time, this was, it's something you do, in your spare time. So there was a time, I want to say it was 2018, and I went down to the Outer Banks for a week by myself. Everyone thought I was crazy. But it's what you hear writers say, and it's actually what I feel like you need to do. So I just sat there and I would get up in the morning. I'd have like toast, coffee, right, eat lunch, come back, right, eat dinner, right. And I was so happy. Like I didn't feel like I was missing out on life or anything. I mean, and then I had an apartment in New York. God, it was like during COVID. I know who got. I went to New York. I paid
Everybody's
for it,
fleeing
rented
New
an
York and you're going to New York.
right? I do the opposite of everybody else. So I did that I would go on the usually I'd go like once a month, but I took an entire week off of work, and did the same thing. I mean, just but I do think it takes that level of commitment.
Yeah. So, how long were you at the Outer Banks when you did that?
I was a week I took a week on the Outer Banks, and a couple of years later, I took a week in New York. And
So
it was
interesting.
so fun. I mean, I loved it because you have to have that you go to that creative space that everyone talks about, but you have to be really surrounded. It's really hard if other people are around you because they want you to, let's go to dinner, let's do this. No, no, no. And
Or
so
your real life is around you,
Mhm,
like the
mhm.
laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, whatever, the
Yeah,
stuff in
yeah.
your own space that you would normally be taking care of. You don't have that when you
No.
have it, but it's just different. It makes it
Mhm.
more seamless, probably. And also, I wonder if there's a safety piece to it. I've often kind of told students that I think it's beneficial. I've done this a couple times. If you're writing about something traumatizing or difficult or challenging or sad, like take yourself out of your own space because that energy is hard. You don't want that in your space. Like, go away, go for a retreat a couple days, even 3 days, whatever. And let yourself just immerse in that mucky stuff to
Mhm.
write the thing. And then when you reemerge, you can be in your own space and you can edit in your own space. But like that, dropping yourself into that scene can sometimes be challenging when you're in your own world, right?
Yeah. Or you know where I some odd place, not really odd places, but I go sit in the sauna
Mm.
about once a week at a place down the street, and I would print off a chapter or essay, and I would bring it with me. And I don't know,
Mhm.
something was. I always felt like that space was so sacred and clear, and also on a
Mhm.
plane. On an
Oh,
air
yes. There's something about not having devices or I mean, it's funny because I remember being really frustrated when they finally got Wi-Fi on, like, automatically on airplanes. I'm like, "No, don't do that to us,"
Mhm.
you know? Like, it's that sacred space where nobody can reach you, and why are we messing with that?
I know, right?
Um, yeah, it's a great place to write, even though there is that, like, claustrophobia thing happening, with other seatmates.
Mhm.
Um, I have this full list of questions here. I'm curious
Mhm.
if there's let's see if I haven't covered anything. Oh, this one's a big one.
Yeah.
Um, talking about writing about other people, people in your life, people you love,
Mhm.
people who might have gone through this experience, adjacent to you, with you.
Mhm.
Um, talk to me about that. That's like one of my biggest things that I get from students all the time is like, how do we write about the people we love?
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah,
yeah, it's tricky. Like, Ben's father passed away in 2022, so kind of in the middle of this journey of this book. So, after that, I felt a little, um, better about writing about Jeff,
yeah.
obviously. Um, then I really who I really enjoyed writing about is, Ben's sister Lauren.
Mhm.
You
I've
know
loved her character in that book.
I
Yeah.
know, and she just loved her brother so much, and, but we definitely butted heads. She moved in
Mhm.
the beginning. I mean, everything was chaotic. She moved, from Florida to Virginia, and,
Which is such a big deal for somebody at her age to just drop everything
she
and,
dropped everything. Mhm, and
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that, and for that time because we didn't know what end was up, like, those first
Right.
few months, yeah, and she ended up going to New York, probably knowing that we would be going there, and she orbited around us there, but it was intense, but when you have face something like that, everyone is so scared.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
were all kind of vying to be the right one, the one that was gonna do it right, the one that could do it better.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
it really just shows what happens to relationships along the way.
So, did you share the book with anybody in your circle that appeared in the pages before
I did
you
not.
published?
Not
That's
anybody that
so
was in the book. And I just felt like it would have distracted me because
Mhm.
they could have come back and said, I'm not saying they would have, that didn't have I or because and not that that
Yep.
didn't happen, but everyone's
The
got
memories are coming.
their own
Yep.
perspective of what happened, and I felt like if I did, it would throw me off center.
Mhm. Yeah. And there's something to be said of being true to your experience because all you're doing in a book like this is sharing your perspective of your events as they happened and as you remembered. That's the story you're telling. You're not telling anyone else's story. It's just that they appear as characters in your story,
Mhm. And then
which
I
can be uncomfortable for people, but
and I thought about not having some characters in there, but then it really wasn't the whole story.
yeah.
If I had taken people out, it really wasn't the truth about how people are and how people grieve, and there isn't a judgment about it. When I
Mhm.
write about my mom and I told her to leave the hospital because, eh, and some people might say, "Oh my gosh, I would have never asked my mom to leave. I would have
Mhm.
wanted my mom there." So um, it's just a telling of what happened, not that it
Yeah.
was right or wrong.
I was going to say you handle it with such grace and compassion for everybody involved. One of the things I try to tell my students, and you hear out there from writing teachers all the time, is like you need to befriend your villains. Like every story has to have a villain, even if they're not a villain in the true sense of the word. Um, and see if you can get into the skin of that person and really understand what they're going through that caused them to behave in a way that they did.
Mhm.
And you do that. You did that in this book so well. It's almost like a master class. Like I want to study it because you were kind, you were generous, and you were honest. And that's kind of what we need to do when we're writing about other people in our stories. Because honesty doesn't sometimes feel generous,
Mm.
but it's necessary to the story, and it's
No, I
informed.
I mean, I would sit there for hours and think, "Should I put it in? Should I take it out? Rewrite it. Is that too
Yeah.
harsh?" And then my sister Tammy, who probably read all every iteration there was of this book, um, and I would say, "What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Keep it in, take it out," you
Mhm.
know? But I think the consensus was tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about being honest to yourself in that regard too.
But I thought
Um,
the book I know one of the questions, and I wanted to make sure that this came up, but you asked me if there was a book that
mhm.
me in my and so I don't know if you I don't know if we've talked about this, but, The Art of Memoir by Mary
Yeah.
Quinn. Oh my gosh, this was I was reading this, like, 2018, so right in the beginning of it me shaping this into a, a real narrative type and, I haven't really gone back into it since then,
Yeah.
but it was I don't know, there was so much in there that just pushed me forward.
She's the one I was thinking about when I made that statement about villains. Like, in that book, The Art of Memoir, she talks about how to like how to write about your villains, how to write about people who maybe wronged you. It's hard. I know she's actually working on a memoir right now about her sister, a challenging relationship with her sister. So I'm very eager to see when that
Oh,
one comes out.
yeah, I
Yeah.
follow her now, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so now that we talked about what you did before publication, I'm curious. I realize it just came out this week, but have any of those characters in your life, read it since it's been completed? Meaning, your parents or Lauren or these people that are still alive that appear in the book.
No, Lauren, I sent her a hardcover and a paperback and wrote her a note, that if, when she's ready,
Mhm.
because I don't know that she will right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that she will. I mean, she's knows I'm doing it. I've talked to her many times about it, but she will in her own way. So
Hmm.
I wasn't expecting that. My parents have had a different reaction. I haven't really talked to them. Um,
Hmm.
I think they've read it. I'm not sure, but I think it came more from what is in the book versus, because it's really the story of Ben
Yeah.
in my landscape about that. So they're in there, but they're not huge characters,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was more fear of what might be in there, but I'm sure we'll have a
Mhm.
conversation at some time.
Yeah. How does it feel to you to think about it out in the world? Like, are there parts? Um, I'm thinking about this just in relation to my own work. Anytime I publish an essay, I'm like, oh my God, how will this person react to it? And they might not even be in the story, but just like people in your lives
Mhm.
that know you, but maybe don't know all these things that you went through or all these things that um, regrets or thoughts or the things that maybe you wouldn't have shared with them, but now it's out there in this book.
I know, it's funny 'cause I was working today, I'm working with some other consultants on a job, and one of them has a son who's been through some medical stuff, and we were talking, and, so I gave her a book today, and I signed it and autographed it for her, and I had that feeling of, oh, like, she knows me professionally, and
Yeah.
maybe, from afar knows I started a foundation, might not know much more than that, I don't know. But there is and I thought, "God," geez, that it is a lot to share.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I
Well,
think
they can be more human to people, I think, which can be a benefit. Like maybe it'll deepen relationships too. We don't always think about that as writers. We are always thinking about the fallout
Mhm.
instead of instead of what might come from it in positive ways.
Yeah, and how I wrote this for another mother.
Mm,
I wrote it because I felt so alone.
yeah.
There was one other story of a mother who actually really was integral in getting dance therapy into Sloan, and, her actually, I talked to her when I was starting my foundation, and I thought about her so many times,
Hmm.
and I thought, what if there's somebody else?
Hmm.
Even if it just
Yeah.
helps one other mother, that's it.
Yeah.
That's been done, you know, mission mission complete. But I think
But
it
there's so much in there. There's so much more in there. Like one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you have this foundation, and of course, you, our listeners, know what the foundation is about and where it came from and all of that. But maybe the people who will read about this from my side of things don't. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about that piece of it, like the movement therapy, the dance, like all the things that the foundation is pushing
Yeah,
for and
so
working
when
for.
we traveled back, we have a wonderful hospital here in Norfolk, Virginia, but we traveled to Sloan Memorial Kettering, and so when we were there, I was just kind of like that curious mom in the clinic, well, like, what's that guy doing, in a karate outfit with a glove? And he was, helping kids with their anxiety around getting access to whatever. And it was, you just see it and you were like, the anxiety would just disappear. I was like, golly, And so, when that first day of his very intense immunotherapy treatment, a dance therapist walked in the room and it completely changed the game. All that anxiety,
Mhm,
everything we were holding kind of just fell to the wayside and we were able to be 100% present with Ben.
mhm.
And I was
Well, and
watching.
all of you were participating. That was what struck me. It was such a beautiful moment. Like, it
Oh my
wasn't
gosh,
just
we would be
them taking care of
dancing,
it.
the
Yeah.
nurses would be coming in, they would get in the dance, then they'd leave. I mean, I just saw not only like, so we were engaged, we were able to be better present with Ben. Ben was better, but then I
Yeah.
was seeing it affect the staff. It was
Right.
like this ripple effect, and, it continued and continued and continued, and I thought, "Well, how can I not I mean, how can you not share?" So, I was serving on a board, like, I think it was a development board at the hospital one time, and I just started talking. All along, I was chatting it up to the doctors, like, "At Sloan, they do this," and they're like, "Yeah, Wendy, that's nice." And it was seen as an extra. It was seen
Mhm.
as, "Oh, that's nice."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, this is more than nice." I mean, it is
Mhm.
it is decreasing his blood pressure. This is
Yeah.
this is something different. And so it took me a while. So when he passed, I was writing and then I started volunteering at our local hospital and I was on the floor and I was walking and it was so quiet.
Mm.
And it was void of what we had experienced. And I was like, why don't I just try to bring this here? I mean, it was like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, that was the beginning, and so much has happened. I mean, the child life department now at this point, they said, "We're doing so many integrated therapies, we had to change the name, Wendy." So they're typically called child life, and now it's called integrated care. So, some
Oh,
really, I think if for children that walk into the Children's Hospital, the King's Daughters in Norfolk will have access to music therapy and art therapy and, you know
there's so many great studies coming out about this. I mean, I think you might know that I work at Cedars-Sinai, and, I just talked to a doctorate student yesterday. She did her whole project on sound therapy, music therapy, and it compared music to Dilaudid, which is a very powerful narcotic, right?
Mhm.
And the folks on that just had sound therapy, they needed so much less Dilaudid. I think it was like zero point 0.2 mil. It was some crazy low dose compared to the ones who didn't get sound therapy. And some of them didn't need it at all. And it was really interesting. It's like, to your point, this isn't extra. This is medical care, right?
It's
It
essential.
just looks a little different. It does the same. It changes your physiology. It just isn't what we typically associate with medical care.
And I think when you're a cancer patient, and I can speak to that, for Ben and myself, um, you feel looked at as just the person with cancer. Like, they walk in the
Mhm.
room and you're the stage 4, this kinda cancer person. But when you bring these other elements in, I think it allows people to see you as a whole
Mhm.
person or more of a whole person instead of
Mhm.
just the diagnosis.
Yeah, they're seeing your humanity. They're seeing
Mhm,
you in concert with, you know, real life. What we all want for real life,
mhm,
um, which is being in the now. Like, whether you're a stage 4 cancer patient or a healthy individual, you're still living right now in this moment.
mhm,
And that's where music brings you right into that moment.
mhm,
Dance brings you right into that moment. Everybody's equal, kind of. Lissa Rankin, she tells a beautiful story about a man who was dying, like, he was literally on his deathbed, and they just danced around him, and this man just developed all this energy and began dancing with them. He ended up living, like, I don't know how. But it was one of those miracle moments, like the power of community and the power of, um, connection. Music
mhm.
connects people, dance connects people. It's what we do, right?
And I can still remember we were doing this, and this was like 2013, 2014, 15, where we were doing a lot of the immunotherapy. And that was the time I think Frozen was really big. So all the girls
Mhm.
they would play like during the immunotherapy, they would play that song from Frozen, Let It Go.
Mm.
Is that the rest of it?
Yes, I
Yeah.
still love that song.
And it was so funny. I think it might have been the most played song
Yeah.
ever up there. So yeah. The girls
So
definitely always wanted that song.
what a
Mhm.
theme song though, right? When you're in cancer treatment, like, can't think
Right?
of anything better, right?
Mhm. But it
Um
was fun to watch people have a little joy, you know,
Mhm.
on a ward where there really isn't much.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of moments of joy in your book that you describe that, people are like, as a reader, you're like, not expecting that in this type of memoir. And that's what I think is so special and unique about it. And I
Mm,
wonder if when you lean into some of those joyful moments, I'm particularly thinking about Ringo Starr because I remember reading that section, that essay with like my jaw open. Like, how cool is this? Um, I
mhm.
wonder if you want to share just a little bit about those joyful moments, maybe that one, maybe something else that stands out to you, and what it was like to relive that in the writing, because that, is the counterpart to the grief part, right?
Yeah, like, yeah, well, we can talk about Ringo, but it was so I mean, it was joyful for all of us. I mean, everyone was so stoked for Ben. Like,
Right.
because it's a funny story. So very early on, like a couple months into the diagnosis, they said, what do you want for a wish? And most kids want to go to Disney World or whatever. And so he said, I want to meet Daft Punk. So this is kind of like a French um, kind of how do you want to describe their music? Not indie, but anyway, it's a little different. Not
Mhm.
something you would pick. And he said, I want to go to Paris and meet Daft Punk. And I was like, oh my God, you were, how is that possible? So for 2 years, Make a Wish tried to get them.
Wow.
They never responded. But I'm not surprised. I mean, they walk around in helmets. I mean, not really, you know what I mean? So, finally we said, "We'll give it a time limit, like, by April or whatever." And so I can remember him with the phone and, I said, "Well, Ben, go ahead and tell him what's your another wish?" And I don't know, I didn't know what he was gonna say, but he said, "I wanna meet Ringo Starr." And I was like, "Oh my god." I mean,
Wow.
another celebrity? I was like but you know what? He never asked once about it, and it happened at the most important time, and I think that's where you sometimes have to let things be. I never called and say, "What's
Ah,
going on
you
at your
didn't
wedding?"
realize you just quoted a Beatles song, right?
No, I didn't. Did I just do that? That was not intentional. But,
Yeah.
let things run their course, and it happened, and I don't know, it was so cool. I mean, I didn't think I was gonna be taken away. I mean, you grow up and you hear about the Beatles, but I remember I think I wrote about, like, you open the door and there's a beetle.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was like and then he kissed me, and I was like, I really didn't think he would kiss me, but how many people get kissed by a beetle? Just
Right.
so there was,
So
so much, and funny, and Ben, I mean, it was just yeah, it was
yeah,
amazing. And
beaming.
Ringo is a kind man. He is a very kind.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. I love the pictures. I love all of it. It was such a great moment in the book and just in life, I'm sure. But also a moment of you guys coming together as a family. Like, I don't know, you and Jeff had a beautiful relationship through this divorce, maybe
Mhm,
because of this child being sick. Like the way you danced around each other. Yeah, sure, there was conflict. It was challenging at
mhm,
times, but like there was a beautiful understanding from each of you about how the other one operates. And maybe it was hard won. I know it was hard won based on some of those essays,
mhm.
but you came to this place of this is about Ben. I wonder what it was like in the living of it. Did it feel like that? In the writing of it felt like that, but I don't know at the living
I
of
mean,
it.
I know that's what people saw. I mean, people in the community would say, we never knew what was happening behind closed doors, but to the appearance always was we were there for Ben, and it was the truth.
Mhm.
We would just drop our stuff. I mean, we
Yeah.
definitely had moments which I wrote about, but at the end of the day, I never always got what I wanted, and neither did Jeff, but we
Mhm.
always made these, like, really loving, conscious decisions for Ben,
Yeah.
and I
And
think
once the decision was made, you were both on board. Like, you
mhm.
both, there was not like, "Oh, we should have done this, we should have done that." At least it felt like that in the pages. I don't
I
know if
just
that's
think
true.
we got to a point where there was this more respect for one another,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
was really hard because, you really have to, after a divorce, you're really not yourself for like a year, right? And so we
Mhm.
were just coming out of that wonky period of time, and you're like, so I never felt like we were divorced.
No. You were with each other too much. You had to be. You saw each
Yeah.
other more than most married couples, I think, during all of
Mhm. And we traveled together. I mean, like it was,
Mhm.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we did,
Um,
I can't speak for Jeff solely, but I've never wanted Ben to feel weird.
mhm. Yeah. Well, I think he felt loved. I think
Mhm.
that's what came out of that,
Mhm.
right? Is just
Yeah.
that he felt how much he was loved, which is so powerful. For the writers out there, I'm wondering if there's like, do you have any advice for people who are embarking on this? As somebody who's in the middle of trying to write my own memoir, it's not
No, you are tell you I
so
wanna hear
hard.
that. It's
It's so hard. Like, so the advice that we always hear is like, keep going. But is there what helped you along the way? Like, what kept you on track? I was saying before we got on the phone that it just sort of felt like it flowed out of you. And I know that's not the
Mhm.
truth because nobody can write that beautifully and that seamlessly without a lot of, you know, late nights and hair pulling and all the things.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it was easy, but sometimes it was really hard, like, sit in the chair.
Mhm. Did
Like,
you do that? Did you, like, give yourself a timer when you were starting to get or what did you do to get it done, get the pages
no,
out?
and I mean, I will say I live by myself, so
Yeah.
I don't have any other children, so I didn't
Mhm.
have the obligations that, a lot of writers have.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of time to devote
Mhm.
to it, but I mean, yeah, keep going is actually what I was gonna say, but it sounds so trite, really, but there was a period of time I put it down for a
Mhm.
couple of years, actually, and it just I think it just had to stew, and it was actually right the couple months before I was introduced to you, it was another mother who was with us in New York, and her son passed as well, and
Mhm.
we were close with their family, and she was it's kind of a interesting story. She was watching that show, Younger, where
Mm.
okay, where the woman and, she was 30 but went back into publishing, and she's in the publishing world, and so Laura was, like, really into the show, and she called me one day, and she was like, "Wendy, you have to pick that back up and finish the book."
Mhm.
So sometimes it's like, you know it has to happen, but you do need a nudge.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I wonder if community plays a role. I always tell, my students and even myself, like, sometimes just having one person who is looking forward to your pages, looking
Mhm,
forward to your book, looking forward to whatever
mhm,
it is you're gonna write, can help you because we become so critical of our
mhm.
words sometimes that it's so easy to get stuck in it and just nitpicky about it instead of just letting the story come out and then worrying about it later.
And she was great. She was like, "Send me the latest draft." And so I probably have sent her an email of numbers, whatever, and I would number them, updated
Mhm.
17, whatever. And she just played this game with me.
Mm.
She never read them. She never
Oh my
read
god.
She just said, "Yes, send it, I'll read it. Send it, I'll read it." And
So
we
funny.
yeah, it was funny. So it was that too that kind of kept me because it's lonely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really lonely to sit with and you tell people you're writing and they're like, you get some eye rolls or, people like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why would you write that?" Whatever. And I just ignored it all.
Well,
We
I
were
think you also get to a point where you don't see it clearly anymore because you've been so in it. So it's easy to be really judgmental and, hard on yourself. Like, this isn't any good or nobody's going to want to read this, especially when you're writing about something heavy like grief and loss. And yet every human being is going to experience grief and loss, every human being. So, um, it shouldn't feel so isolating, but it can feel really isolating.
yeah. And then there's a million books, 3 million books on Amazon or something, and now there's
Mhm,
hybrid publishing and self-publishing, so it's a lot easier to
mhm,
bring something forward, right, than it was
mhm. Yeah.
in the past. So then you're like, "Well, someone already wrote about that," or
Okay.
then you play that mind game.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the different types of publishing because I know it early
Mhm.
on, it was like pushing you to get an agent, and I was like, "This is so good. I really want this to, be in a big 5 publisher." And yet, really, not every story needs a big 5 publisher, and not every story wants to wait that long to get out into the world. So, I'm curious about what made you make the leap. I know we were talking, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, she's publishing, like, it's going, it's happening
Mhm.
now."
Well, it was interesting. So we were talking timelines, and
Mhm,
so, um, I knew that that was a much longer game, but I did
mhm,
try. So I mean, I think I took a week and just researched who were the literary agents in this genre. um, who were the and so you sent me a few suggestions and I would go on websites and look, and then you'd have to find out, okay, they're not open for submissions, or
mhm,
you have to email this person. And so it took a long time to kind of hone in and work on the
mhm,
proposal and a query letter and all the other things. So I decided I was going to give it 3 shots. So I did pitch a literary agent that I felt was maybe the best fit, and I pitched a house that felt like it was and then I pitched Kohler Books, who is a hybrid publisher. And the cool thing about that is, in 2018, around all this other stuff that's happening, I read this article in a local magazine, Cova Biz, about this guy who was trying this new way of publishing, and he just seems so cool. Like, he's in his studio office, and I was like, "Oh, that would be really cool. Like, if I ever do this, I'll reach out to him." So he was the third one.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so I knew that you could send out letters for what, 6 months, a year?
Oh, yeah.
And
Longer.
and I was like, let me try it. Let me just see. And so it was less than 30 days. He
Wow.
he sent it back, and he called me, actually, the owner of the company, and said, "Hey, I pulled yours because you're local, and I like what you're doing in the foundation, and you're a good writer." So they get 100
Mhm.
submissions a month, and they
Wow.
picked 10,
Wow.
and I got graded. He said, we rate them from, like, I guess it was like 0 to 4. So 4 being like really good
Mhm.
publishing, and so I got a 3.5.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, so it was, I don't know, there's something about it being published in, and even though he said, "I pulled you because you're local," but we don't generally deal with a lot of Virginia Beach authors either. So
Mhm.
there's something kind of cool just about all of that. And it's such a collaborative process. I was kind of anxious about the editing. You broke me
Yeah.
in, and it was so fun with you, but I was like, well, what if this editor isn't, it's not the same, but it was. And I really loved her, and I enjoyed the whole process, actually.
I love hearing that. It can be really hard when you get an editor who doesn't see things the same way you do. And a lot of writers jump ship at that point. They're like, this is not for me. I don't, but your pages were so polished by the time I saw them. I'm sure that they did very light edits.
Yeah, it
But
wasn't, I was expecting more critical
mhm.
input, actually, than what it was. And I don't know if it was, I don't have any experience with traditional, but I don't
Yeah.
know. It was, I mean, they want the book to sell, you want it to sell, so
Yeah.
the
Well, and
hard
it's a fast process. From the time you got the call, it was late last year, right?
it was in December. I signed the contract, I think it was December 16th, and
Yeah.
they already had once you're on, okay, your publishing date is August 25th,
Yeah.
and everybody works toward that goal.
That is
I
so
mean, and I
cool.
loved what he said. He was like, he put his hands up in the air, and I'll hold the book, but he was like, "We will all serve the book. Everyone is serving the book. Everyone."
Oh,
And it was true.
I love that.
Yeah. He said, "Everyone's."
So are they so now with promotions, they're part of this whole process, right? To some degree to help you promote.
Yeah, they were great, and I think as much as you want them to be or not. I mean, some authors just write, and once they're not as,
Involved.
engaged in
Mhm.
that, but, like, I already had a platform, the
Yep.
podcast on it, so it was a little easier for me to, think about that in terms, and I have a wonderful staff or team at the
Mhm.
foundation that has helped me because, geez, I don't know if I could have, um, done all this on my own, and they were so supportive along the way, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so and they had office hours, their marketing team, once a couple times a month, you could pop on, and all these other authors that are publishing are on there, and everyone's asking the questions about the giveaways or,
Yeah.
all the people that are poaching you for paid
Mhm.
stuff, and so it can be a little overwhelming just to kind of navigate,
Yeah.
um, those sorts of things, but some of that's just gut driven too, I'm like,
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah, it's so interesting because that's the part of this whole business. It's like you're not a writer anymore. You become a business person and you have to
mhm."
be, cautious about all the scams out there and the things out there that are not real and how to just, how to do the marketing piece, which is a different hat. It's a different hat for all of us.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing happened to me this week. So this woman was calling me, and so I finally got on the phone with her, and then she had to get off or something. But she's like, we were going to schedule a time to talk about whatever she was going to say, and she goes, "Well, do you have 10 minutes, real quick?" And I was like, "Sure." So told me that her daughter died. I mean, this is just died,
Mm.
and she was so moved by the story. So she reads me this poem she wrote,
Oh,
but the
wow.
poem was pulled. All the key words were just from the back cover.
Oh my gosh.
And then she goes, "I have another one." And then she serenaded me a song about Ben. And then towards the end of the song said, "I'd love to work with you and for an investment." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. Can you back up a minute?"
Wow.
Yeah.
How
Well,
did you handle that?
she's robocalling me now. And I I thought it was so distasteful to
It
play my
is.
emotions like that.
How did you handle that? How do you
Well,
handle
part of
that?
me thought it was true. Maybe
Mm.
she did have, I mean, maybe she did. But
Yeah.
then she said her husband was name was Ben, and he died too, and I'm like, "Really?" I'm just so I mean, so I don't know, that just struck me. I
Mm.
was like, "Wow."
That's a really interesting point too, and it leads me back to where we were talking about, how much you disclose. I think sometimes when we talk about these things that you do in your book and that I do in my writing
Mhm.
is people think that you're gullible and that you see everything as synchronicity and that you think because there is so much spirituality and connection and like mystical stuff in our worlds, in my world and your world, as far as I know. And so I feel like people prey on that sometimes and they think that they can take advantage of that side
Mhm.
of you. And yet you still have alarm bells. Like you know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that makes the mysticism when it is real all
Mhm.
the more powerful, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm. I
Yeah.
know. So it's been such an I'm so glad I did it. I mean, I can't imagine not having these experiences of publishing and meeting all of these people and meeting you, and I mean, it makes my life very rich.
Well, and how much you're helping people. Like it just came out. So I can't wait. In fact, we should do a follow-up call sometime where you read all the
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you mail and all the sweet mail that you're going to get from this,
Well,
from
I've probably gotten 5 or 10 pictures of people holding the book or it at their Amazon, like, in their mailbox, or I've gotten probably 5 or 6 voicemails, and
That's so great.
so yeah, so the Amazon it's so interesting because people can write a review on Amazon, but it takes, like, 24 to 72 hours, so we're still in that window where they're not populating. So,
Yes.
I know part of me wants to read them, and then part of you, is kind of like, "Don't wanna read them," but we'll see. We'll
I
see how
always
it
have like
plays
a
out.
friend kind of wade through comments for me because sometimes it's too emotional. Like send me the
Yeah.
good ones. I don't need to read everything. It's not a bad idea to appoint somebody because it can get really heavy, reading everybody else's stories too. Like
Mhm.
you've had your own grief, and sometimes I suspect you're an empath like me. You tend to absorb other people's stuff,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and this is in the celebration mode. Like this is a celebration of Ben right now.
I know,
And
and
you and
it's
your
an
connection that continues. Yeah.
it's an invitation for people to meet Ben too,
Yeah.
people that
What a
don't
gift, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm
What a
just
gift.
I
Yeah.
am grateful for people like you who have come along my path, definitely
Well,
helped
you're
me.
reminding me that I can review it now. Like, I totally forgot to do that. I did an endorsement, but I haven't reviewed
No.
it, so maybe
I
get it
know
on
your
Amazon.
endorsement, I'll read your endorsement.
Oh, I
You
can't
made the
wait.
back cover.
I heard, I was so excited. It's very
So
fun.
yeah, you wrote Wendy Goldberg's stunning collection of essays chronicles the messy experience of grief with unflinching honesty and a touch of humor. Amy
I
Paturel,
love
essayist and contributor to the New York Times and others.
I love it. I love
I
it. I
know.
love it, and that's true. The humor piece is real. Like,
It
I
is.
think so many people are afraid of grief books, but sometimes it's the most real and honest and the light moments that really make the book come to life because
Mhm.
it's not all heavy. It's about love and connection. I mean, it still is as it goes out into the world. So, thank you for bringing this project out to the world. I
Mm.
know it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a part of it, and I know you have a memoir coming brewing as well.
we'll see. Yes, a long haul project. It will
Mhm.
definitely be years from now, but we're getting there. And I'm
Mhm.
at least putting words on the page, so it starts somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll circle back and do it again at that point
Let's
when I
let
launch mine.
let's do it. All right, Amy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was so much fun hanging out. Thank you for asking me to join you.
All right. Talk
Good
to you soon.
luck to your book.
Those of you who are watching, Mom's book, Never About the
Thank you.
Grief, out now.